December 5th, 2022 was a cold winter night in London. In Deptford, somewhere in southeast London, a Kenyan family living there was having a birthday celebration. 24-year-old Maureen Gitau was in attendance, but as the night wore on, she walked out of the party and vanished without a trace. What followed was a desperate search for her by her loved ones. Tireless work by the Metropolitan Police to find her led to a very chilling reality of what happened to her that night. This is the story of Maureen Gitau and the mystery surrounding her disappearance in London, United Kingdom. Welcome back to the Crime Gist. My name is Damisa. Maureen Gitau was born in 1998 in Consolata Mathari Hospital in Nyeri County in Kenya. She was the beloved daughter to her mother, Jane Kigodho, who hailed from Joro, Nakuru County, and Mr. Gitau, who little is known of. When Morin was just 2, her mom, Jane Kigodho, made the decision to relocate to the United Kingdom, seeking better opportunities for herself and her daughter. Jane Kigodho's sister, known as Faith Njeri, was already residing in the UK with her family. And so Jane and her daughter Morin joined them in the UK. They all resided in the same apartment block. That was in Evelyn Street in Deptford, southeast London. Life in the UK presented its own set of challenges and opportunities. Morin grew up there and attended schools in the UK. But as she became a young adult, she wanted to contribute to the household by helping her mom out. She was also eager to build a future for herself. And so, whenever she was on school breaks, she would find something to do. Any type of work just to keep herself busy and make some money. In the summer of 2022, she secured a temporary job as a cleaner at the Oval Cricket Ground in London. She was only to work there during summer, that is July to September 2022. At this job, Maureen's friendly nature allowed her to be good friends with her co-workers. She was described as hardworking and a very friendly and jovial girl. It was at the Oval Cricket Ground that her path crossed with that of a fellow cleaner known as Mark Moody. Mark was a 54-year-old man from Woolwich, southeast London. Little is known about Mark's background and his upbringing. However, it was known that he didn't have a permanent job, but only a series of temporary jobs. He also had a few run-ins with the police in the past over petty crimes, a fact that Morin was not aware of. When that summer came to an end, Mark changed jobs and started working as a caretaker at a residential building known as Richmond House in Blackheath Hill in Deptford. Maureen's contract at the Oval grounds also came to an end, but she didn't immediately go into another job. But even when they left their jobs at the Oval grounds, Mark and Morin remained in touch. They were in contact over calls and texts, although far less frequently than they did when they were work colleagues. Also, Morin was on the lookout for another job, and that might explain why she stayed in contact with him. Maybe it was to get information on other available jobs around. However, on December 5th, 2022, things would take a very weird turn. That day began like any other day. That evening, Maureen's family would be celebrating her auntie's birthday at their home in Deptford. When evening came, the birthday party began. There was lots of food, drinks, and music. Morin was in a really good mood, happily playing with the children and helping out in the kitchen. Later in the night, her phone rang. No one knew who was on the other end of the line, but when she hung up the phone, she informed her family that she was going out to meet up with a friend. This was nothing out of the ordinary for her. She sometimes would visit friends and hang out with them away from her family. This time, unbeknownst to everyone, things would be very different. When she left the party that night, no one would have thought that that would be the last time they would ever lay their eyes on her. By the following day, Morin was not back home. Her family and friends tried to contact her, but her phone was off. But they didn't want to worry themselves too fast or think too much into it. They thought that she was just busy with her friends and would come back later. However, when she didn't come back or communicate with them even on the next day, everyone got extremely worried. Maureen's family and friends spent the next few days looking for her without success. On Saturday, December 10th, 2022, they made a formal missing person report with the police. The Metropolitan Police immediately launched an investigation, and detectives began piecing together Maureen's last known movements. Searches and public appeals were issued for help to find Morin. Morin was last seen wearing black jeans, a black top, and a black jacket. She was described as having short black hair with brown highlights at the top. The police urged anyone with information about her whereabouts to contact them. Days turned into weeks. Even the Christmas holidays came and went. Maureen's family did not celebrate that Christmas or the New Year after she went missing. Her mother was still out there appealing to the public. She was quoted saying that Christmas time had been very hard for her and her family. The longer Maureen stayed missing and out of contact, the more concern grew among her friends and family. By the end of that month, the police, who were still busy working even during the festive season, had not been able to locate Maureen Gitau. They feared that she may have come to serious harm. Detectives tried their best to trace Maureen's last movements. They began with looking at CCTV footages and phone records. The search for Maureen Gitau involved massive amounts of resources and manpower. The Metropolitan Police began by examining 500 hours of footage captured from doorbells, shops, and buses. After plowing through hundreds of hours of footage, finally, they landed on some very useful footage. This footage seemed to show the last movements of Maureen Gitau. A CCTV captured Morin entering a building known as Richmond House at around 10:30 p.m. on December 5th, 2022. She was in the company of 54-year-old Mark Moody, and this was the building where Mark worked as a caretaker. In the footage, Maureen was never seen leaving the building. That was the break in the case that the investigators needed. They then moved to phone records. That revealed that Moody was the last person to call Maureen's phone before her disappearance. He was the one that called her when she was at her auntie's party. Morin had left the party to go meet up with him. And so, Mark Moody quickly became the prime suspect. The police spoke to him on December 30th, and on sensing some inconsistencies in his statement, they arrested him. When Mark was questioned, he admitted that he knew Maureen. He claimed that she had called him to ask if they could meet up after his shift on that day. He also said that he traveled by bus to meet her in Deptford Bridge that night. According to him, he found her at the bus stop, gave her £10 and a cigarette, and spoke to her for around 5 minutes before returning home. However, many aspects of his statements to the officers were entirely untrue. His lies would be exposed when more footage would reveal what may have taken place inside Richmond House. In the footage, Mark Moody is seen moving a large waste bin around the basement of Richmond House. This was about an hour and a half after going into the building with Maureen. He then took the bin to the cleaner's room where the cameras didn't quite capture. There, he filled the bin with waste for a number of minutes, then brought it back to the basement and filled it with even more rubbish. Moody is caught by surprise when they show him this footage. I wonder how he could work at a building and not know there were cameras around. But even with the footage, he continued denying his involvement. Even though Maureen's body had not been recovered, from the evidence, it was presumed that Moody may have killed her and dumped her in the bin. And with that, Mark Moody was charged with murder and 2 counts of perverting the course of justice. Moody's trial would take place at Bromley Magistrates Court beginning on January 3, 2022. At trial, he denied all charges, but the prosecution presented a very compelling case based on circumstantial evidence. The prosecution case was that Morin never left that building alive after walking in with Mark Moody. This is how things were presumed to have unfolded. As Maureen Gitau was celebrating her auntie's birthday, she got a call from Mark Moody. She left her home to meet him, unaware of the sinister intentions he harbored. Mark Moody then lured her to Richmond House, which is the block of flats where he worked as a caretaker during the day. He did not have access to it at night. He and Morin gained entry to the building by following a vehicle through the automatic gate at around 10:30 p.m. Inside Richmond House, Mark Moody murdered Morin, likely in the cleaner's room. After committing the heinous act, CCTV footage showed him moving a large communal bin at the basement of the building while wearing surgical gloves. At around 11:50 p.m., he moved the large bin near the cleaner's room and out of the view of the cameras. It's believed that it was here that he placed Morin's body inside the bin, concealing it beneath layers of rubbish. He was later seen drinking a beer, and an hour after that, he traveled home on a bus. Morin did not leave Richmond House. Her cell phone's travels were consistent with Mark Moody having it on his way home, meaning he took her phone with him after killing her. The next morning, December 6th, Mark Moody returned to work at Richmond House and filled the bin with more waste. The said bins were collected on December 8th by the city for disposal purposes. Once investigators realized that Moody had disposed of Morin's body in the bin that had been collected, a large-scale search operation was launched to locate Morin's body. The search involved 125 trucks transporting over 2,500 tons of waste to a site in Essex. 60 officers were involved in the operation each day, resulting in a total of 20,000 search hours. Despite these extensive efforts, Morin's body was never found. It was believed that after Mark Moody dumped her body in the bin, the contents of the bin, including Morin's body, were collected and transported to a rubbish processing plant where her body was likely incinerated, meaning the contents of the bin were likely burnt, making it very hard to recover any evidence. Even though Mark Moody denied involvement and the body was never found, the evidence against him was overwhelming. On November 16, 2023, Mark Moody was jailed for life and will only be eligible for parole after serving a minimum term of 20 years. Judge Nicholas Lavender noted that Mark Moody had never given an account of what happened between him and Morin at Richmond House. No one knew why he killed her. In short, the motive of the murder and the details of the actual murder remain unknown. No one knows what weapon was used or how and why he committed the murder. What is clear, however, is the fact that he had everything to do with her disappearance. Morin's mother addressed the killer directly in court before he was sentenced. She branded him a coward and a cold-hearted murderer. She was very devastated that her family was denied the opportunity to lay Morin to rest as her body was never recovered. She described her daughter as a loving, happy, and caring girl who always went out of her way to ensure everyone around her was doing well. She said that Morin was very jovial and would light up any room she walked into. Our hearts go out to Morin's family and friends. As for Mark Moody, he is exactly where he belongs, paying for his heinous crime behind bars. I hope the thought of what he did haunts him every passing day. That marks the end of our episode today. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below, and as usual, please do not forget to subscribe, to like, and to share this episode with other true crime junkies like yourself. See you right here on the next one.